Howdy, and welcome to episode 42 of T-Shirts and Shawls. I'm Karen, and today is Wednesday, November 15th, 2017. Although I will be uploading this tomorrow on Thursday, so by the time you see it, it'll be Thursday. So today is actually the last day to sign up for the Abduction of Guinevere Yarn Club. So again, once you watch this, the signups will actually be closed. So if you join the Yarn Club, yay, I'm excited to have you. And if you missed this round, don't despair. I will be doing Yarn Clubs again in the future. Just make sure that you're on my mailing list, and that is the best way to find out about Yarn Clubs. This one is a 4-month club, so it'll end, the last shipment will be in March. After that, I will have DFW Fiber Fest, so in April, so I probably will wait to start the next Yarn Club until after DFW Fiber Fest. But, so late April or May. So if you're not in this one and you're interested in joining a Yarn Club, make sure you're on my mailing list. That is the best way to find out about the club. And Wally wants to say hello, mostly to me. I don't think he understands the camera is on. So here's Wally, and we'll go ahead and get started with today's episode. So for the shirt that I'm wearing today, I pulled out my Mafia shirt. Mafia stands for Mansfield Area Fiber Inspired Artisans, and that is the name of my knitting group. And I picked this shirt because as I was flipping through the shirts in my closet this morning, I was trying to find something that was related to Texas, because that's what I wanted to talk about in this section. So I really found out that I don't have very many Texas-related shirts, so I may have to do something about that. But the reason that I wanted to mention it is because of a post that Yarn Carnival, another indie dyer, also here in Texas, posted on Instagram. So I want to show you the picture that's on the post and then read the words that were written. So basically, she has this big graphic, we knit in Texas, y'all. And then she also did one for crochet, spin, and weave. So to cover the 4 big fiber related arts. So the reason that she posted this is a rather unfortunate reason. She said that they recently went to a show in the Northwest, and she didn't say specifically which show, but I did a little bit of research and figured it out. It's not hard to figure out, but since she didn't post, I won't mention the exact show. But anyway, recently did a show in the Northwest. So what happened was a really horrible experience for her. So again, Yarn Carnival is another indie dyer here in Texas. So she said, and this is quoting from her post, I got the absolute worst reception possible for an artist, maker, indie biz person. Well, I did meet some lovely folks, and she does reiterate in the comments, specifically, some people posted, and she said, yes, there were definitely some really, really wonderful people. So there were wonderful people, but the overwhelming majority of interactions I had followed along the following lines. I was dismissively, derisively asked if people actually knit in Texas, then told that I couldn't possibly have any idea of what I was doing because it never got cold enough in Texas. They refused to even touch the yarn. Close up of Wally! Sorry. They refused to even touch the yarn. Refused to listen to our process, refused to entertain the possibility that we have industrial air conditioning and extraordinarily variable weather. They refused to acknowledge the vast depth of talent we have in designers, indie dyers, fiber artists, refused to listen to the quality of the numerous yarn shops we have the good fortune to have. I was almost in tears at the level of rudeness. I still am. We took a huge loss of this show that it'll take us months to recover from. I don't plan on going back for another show. The comments made were absolutely brutally ignorant. So just wow. I'm so saddened by this experience that she had at this show. And again, she reiterates there were some really, really fantastic people. So I know this is not everybody. in the area, but obviously there were enough interactions that were like that for her to post about it, because otherwise, if it was just one or two, that would be, especially I'm going to share a little bit more about what she plans to do. If it were just one or two comments, then, you could probably let those go. But she said the overwhelming majority. So just incredible, surprise at the comment. But then, I realized it. I am a Texan, even though I lived in Indiana for a few years when I was in graduate school. I was born and raised in Texas. I definitely identify as a Texan. Texas, although there are things about, it's a giant state, so it's got quite a variety of people and places. Though there are some things about Texas I don't agree with, like some of the politics. I am very proud to be a Texan, and it is something that is important to my identity. And one of the things that I am most proud of since I've moved back is the fiber community. It is an amazing fiber community here in Texas. I'm overwhelmed at how much talent we have with dyers and designers, how many wonderful yarn shops we have, how many fantastic fiber festivals we have going on here in Texas. And it's overwhelming to me how wonderful the community is. I feel blessed and fortunate. And so it's rather surprising that people that are in other areas wouldn't understand that could happen in a place where the climate is decidedly very, very warm. But, like she did post, air conditioning, oh my gosh, in the summers, you guys, sometimes you really do need a cardigan or a shawl or something to throw over your shoulders, because, man, if that air conditioner hits you, freezing. Sometimes, kind of dress in layers. You dress kind of for the inside when you're in the summers in Texas, not so much for the outside, because you spend so much time inside and in that air conditioning. Anyway, so I just find it really sad that people, not everybody again, but that some people don't realize how wonderful the Texas fiber community is, and also just how vast it is, that there are so many people that are involved. So the other thing that Yarn Carnival posted was that she's going to make some merchandise with those graphics that I showed you, and she already has t-shirts and bags, and I will link in the show notes to the place where, if you are interested, you can buy a t-shirt or a bag. And then I think she's going to be doing pins and stickers or buttons or something like that as well. And she said she would post kind of by the end of this week information about that. So the second thing she's going to try to do is to set up a Texas Fiber business board to promote Texas fiber producers, associations, dyers, spinners, yarn shops, designers, weavers, and our mill, which, by the way, there's a very important mill here in Texas, which Clara Parks will tell you all about. And it says that it seems we could use some recognition and promotion on a national and international level. So she basically wants to start an organization to help promote the wonderful fiber community in Texas, outside of Texas, so that other people realize how much value the Texas fiber community has. And so I told her that I would be very happy to help out in any way that I could. And she said the first thing is obviously to spread the word, which is one of the reasons I'm talking about this here. So definitely spread the word. And then I think her reply to my comment sounded like she would be happy to have me join this board. So I don't know exactly what that'll entail and what exactly it would mean. But yeah, I'm definitely happy to jump in. And to help out. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I feel this is an amazing, fantastic community, and I would really love to share more about it. And I don't know, I'm really surprised at some of those reactions. If you think about some of the things in Texas that are extremely popular outside of Texas, For those of you who aren't in Texas, I'm sure you've heard of Madeline Tosh yarn. It is, something that is extremely popular all over the United States and even in several international places. That's right here in Texas, in Fort Worth. That's where Mad Tosh is. So, I mean, it's kind of why would it be so surprising to people that we have a vibrant fiber community in a place where, sure, we might not get to wear our hand knits all year round, but we definitely enjoy knitting and crocheting and spinning and weaving. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of spread the word about that, talk a little bit about Yarn Carnival's experience, and I have no idea what this means going forward, but at least for now, there are t-shirts and bags with the We Knit or Crochet or Weave or Spin in Texas, y'all. Little graphic, which I think is a wonderful idea just to kind of start off with a little bit of outreach, I guess, and sharing the information. So again, that's why I'm wearing my Mafia shirt, which is my local knitting group that I belong to, and passing along this word about Yarn Carnival's experience and what it has kind of, I guess, compelled her to do moving forward. So you may not be aware, because it has been a while since I've mentioned this, but on the Ravelry forum for the podcast, there is a thread called Questions for Karen. And if you ever have any question that you would like me... KO in the face. Ever have a question that you would like me to answer on the podcast, then you can post in that thread on Ravelry, and on the next podcast episode, I will answer your question. And this time, making sure that Wally's not getting into yarn, this time I actually have 2 questions. So I will answer those questions on this episode, and I will link to the thread in the show notes so that way you can find it if you have a question that you would like to post. So I'm actually going to answer the second question first, and then go back and answer the first question. So Care Bear asks, let's see, should I be leaving my yarn in the original format, a hank form, so basically the big loop. So should I be leaving my yarn in the original hank form, or should it immediately be wound into a cake? I have heard that winding it into a cake can stretch your yarn out, so you should leave it as a hank till you are ready to start your project. Is this true? What is your opinion? So yes, you are right that by winding it into a cake, especially if you wind it really tightly, that can cause the yarn to stretch out a little bit. Wool, if it's wool, it is wool is something that likes to go back to its original shape a lot of times. So it's probably not an extremely big deal, and unless you're like, your cake is so tight that like if you threw it across the room and hit somebody with it, it would cause injury. You're probably not going to do horrible damage to it, but yes, in general, it is better to go ahead and leave your yarn in the hank format instead of winding it into a cake until you're ready to use it. And I know there are people who wind all their yarn who maybe don't have a yarn winder, a ball winder in Swift, and so they have their yarn shop wind it whenever they buy yarn, and therefore they're storing it in the cake form. So if you do that, just make sure it's, like I said, it's not super tight, and you should be okay. But the preference, if you don't need to wind it right away, if you don't have a compelling reason to do that, just leave it in the hank form, and that way, when you are ready to knit, then you can go ahead and pull it out and wind it into a ball. I know probably this is something that people have very strong feelings about, and I think best practice, wait until you're ready to use it to wind it. But again, as long as it's not super tight, I wouldn't be too concerned about ruining the yarn. But I leave all of mine in the hank form, and I don't wind it until I'm ready to use it. So I guess my personal preference is to wait until you're ready to use it. But I have a ball winder in Swift, so I can do that, whenever I'm ready. The other question is from Christy Rose, who asks, do you use the Knit Companion app? If so, would you consider doing a tutorial on how to use it? I am using it for my cross-stitch patterns, but I'm having issues figuring it out. First of all, cross-stitch patterns. I used to cross-stitch. That would have been kind of helpful to possibly use it for cross-stitch patterns. Okay, so Knit Companion. Yes, I use Knit Companion all the time. I actually started using Knit Companion. I'm going to pull it up on my iPad. I started using Knit Companion pretty soon after it first came out. I heard about it. It sounded, in case you don't know what Knit Companion is a place to take a PDF of a pattern and be able to use the electronic version of the pattern and to follow along where you are on the pattern. And it keeps track of where you are and saves your place. So if, you put a pattern down for a couple of months, like the Beauty and the Beast shawl, it will remember exactly where you left off. So it's a really, really handy app. And like I said, I've been using it pretty much toward the beginning of when it was released. And in fact, I bought this iPad specifically because I wanted to use Knit Companion. I was fine without an iPad before then, but when I heard about Knit Companion, I wanted it and I wanted to use it. I could have used it on my phone, but the screen is just so small. I really didn't want to do that. Yes, I've been using Knit Companion for quite a while. As far as doing tutorials of Knit Companion, I'm not opposed to doing that, but I will say that even though I've been using the app for a long time, I only use a very few of the features on it. I import the PDF, I turn it into a project. Any charts that I have, I convert to charts, so I can use some of the chart functions, like being able to highlight the row that you're on. And I also use this thing called magic markers, which allows you, like say you have a chart with a whole bunch of knit stitches and you don't want to have to count each individual knit stitch between, say between some purls or something like that. You don't want to have to count out each time. You can use magic markers to automatically count those knit stitches, and it'll give you a number, if you have 14 knit stitches, it'll actually have the number 14, so you don't have to count. You can just use the magic markers. And honestly, that's about all I do. Occasionally I do a little annotation, a little note, but pretty much those are the only functions that I use Knit Companion for, and I still feel like it's entirely worthwhile using, even though I don't use all the bells and whistles. So there are a lot of things that Knit Companion does that I actually don't know how to do. Or that I don't use. So any tutorials that I do would be limited to those few small things that I actually do. And then the other thing is, because it is an app, it is not available on the computer. And I have a program to capture my screen on the computer, like when I'm doing the tutorials for Ravelry. But I don't currently have a program that would capture my screen on my iPad or my iPhone. I know they exist, so I'd have to research that and look into it. So I'll just say right now, I don't have any plans on doing any tutorials. But I did actually reply to Christy's post on Ravelry. There is actually a Ravelry group for Knit Companion, and it is a very active group, and you can definitely get help there. And there are tutorials that are out there. Also, I know that there are yarn shops and fiber festivals that offer classes on Knit Companion. So, in fact, I know at DFW Fiber Fest, they've had Knit Companion classes in the past. So that might also be something to look into if you feel like you want some more hands-on, experience. Possibly see if there's a class anywhere near you, not just Christy, but anyone. See if there's a class you can take. So I did want to show just a couple of things about Knit Companion. So when you open up Knit Companion, this is what it will look like. So mostly you use the project section, and then the PDFs. You can either use like Dropbox to import PDFs, or you can actually connect your Ravelry account to Knit Companion and import PDFs that way. So I'm going into projects. This is a list of all the projects. Oops, if you can see my screen at all. This is a list of all the projects that I currently, wow, that glare is totally not working. All the projects that I currently have in Knit Companion. And I'm actually going to pick one of my projects because I'm going to show you a chart, and I have permission to show my own charts. I don't want to show someone else's pattern and their charts. So basically, let's see if I can do it this time without a glare. Hello. Okay, so sorry, the angle is totally weird, but at the top of the screen, those are all the pages of the PDF. And then this one is a chart that I've created. So then in the middle of the screen, you can see my chart. And the nice thing is the highlighted row could be the row that I'm working on. And Wally just is underneath the camera and he's jiggling the tripod. So the highlighted row is the row I'm working on. And when I finish with that row, I can just tap up and it will move on to the next row. Hang on a second. I got to get Wally out. He's got a toy. He wants to play. Poor kitty. You're being ignored because I'm paying attention to the camera and not you. Anyway, so we can go row by row, and so you can keep track of which row of a chart you're on. So like I said, that's really how I use Knit Companion. But I find it extremely helpful to be able to keep track of where I am in a project. So I'm sorry that I don't have, and I don't know how that would work as well with cross-stitch patterns if you're, because when I cross-stitched, I would pick like a color and I would do like all the stuff with that color, and then I would go back and pick another color. So you probably wouldn't really be able to use it for that row by row since, maybe you cross-stitch differently, but I personally wouldn't have found it as helpful. It would have been nice just to kind of have the chart or the cross stitch chart available. That would be kind of neat. But yeah, I think using it for cross stitch, I know there are people who do that because I have heard that before. So that might also be something to look at on the Knit Companion forum. See if someone else is using it for cross stitch and see if they have some tips or tricks in trying to use it for that. So like I said, I don't know how much that helps Christy with your question, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of where you could potentially go to find some help. And also the rest of you, if you're not familiar with Knit Companion, maybe you will give it a try. It is available for Apple, so the iPad, and it is available for the iPhone, but unless you have one of the pluses, the big iPhones, I wouldn't really recommend it because it's, the screen is pretty small. And then there is an Android version. However, the Android version doesn't have all the features that the the Apple versions have. So just kind of keep that in mind. I think that I started using it when it was a one-time fee and you basically got the program. I think now it's a yearly fee. I think it's like $15 a year. Don't quote me on this. But honestly, I use it so much that even if I had to pay yearly, I would pay because it is a really, really handy app and I love using it. So now that green shawl is done, I have things that I'm knitting that I can work on besides that. And so as ever, I have a sock project on the needles. So this, I actually got quite a good chunk of it done. This is the Pumpkin Spice Latte colorway from Must Stash Yarns. And last week on Monday, so not this past Monday, but last week on Monday, I cast on and basically knit a little bit of the ribbing at my knitting group. And then on Saturday, I picked it back up again and took it with me to West 7th Wool, which is the yarn shop in Fort Worth. I was doing a trunk show. And so I was basically there at the yarn shop all day, and in between the times that I was, talking to people, and even while I was talking to people, I was working on this sock, and I got, I think I basically got the heel flap down through most of the brown. I was still a little bit into the brown when I was done at the end of the day, so I got the leg basically done and the start of the heel. And then I finished the heel Sunday, and then on Monday at my knitting group this Monday, I finished the gusset decreases and started on the toes. So making kind of quick work of this sock once I really got going on it, which is fun. So this is a colorway that normally I wouldn't pick. I mean, I like browns, but the kind of orangey color is not something I would normally go for. But that's kind of one reason I picked it, because I thought I wanted to do something a little bit different from what I normally do. So that's why I picked this particular color. And yeah, it's the first sock, so I'll still have the next one to go, but that will be fun. As far as the trunk show, that went pretty well overall. West 7th Wool has a lot of great yarn, so it's a very beautiful shop to be in. Got to see several familiar faces and also meet some new people. The traffic was a little slow. It was Veterans Day, so and I know in downtown Fort Worth there was a parade, so possibly the fear of traffic, even though West 7th is not downtown, fear of traffic or just being busy might have kept people away. But it was a fun day, and I got a good chunk of sock done and got to talk to several people, so that was great. And then the other thing, I showed you guys that I started a cardigan. So it is the Let Go cardigan from Joji Locatelli, and I have made some pretty good progress on this. So the way it works is that you start by knitting the back, and so last time, if I remember right, I basically started the back, so probably had like that much of it done. So we start with the back, and you knit down to a certain point, and then you pick up stitches along the one side for the left front and the other side for the right front, and you start knitting those down. And then once you get past the underarm, you join the three sections together, and it's a cardigan, so I'm not knitting in the round. I'm still knitting back and forth, but now I'm knitting the side, back, and other side. And this is a cardigan that kind of has it gets bigger, it increases, so it kind of has a swingy bottom to it, so I really like that. And yeah, so I have basically just a little bit from the underarm done. So there's the back, so you can see the neat cable pattern that is on this cardigan. And I was really proud of myself for picking up the stitches. I think that I picked them up in just the right place, so that way you can kind of see the little crease, which is where the stitches were picked up, but the cable just flows from the back to the front quite nicely. So I was trying to be really careful about where I picked up my stitches and making sure that I got them in the right place, so that way I would be able to have that pattern flow over. So I'm really, really happy that it turned out that way. So yeah, so I'm having fun with this project. Pretty much from here on to the bottom of the cardigan is just continue to knit the cable pattern and then do some increases for that swingy feeling, and then eventually I'll come back and do the sleeves. But this is yarn from Madeline Tosh. I believe it's the DK, Tosh DK. I think I forgot last time which one it was. I know it's a DK weight one. Even though I'm using size 8 needles, which is what I normally use for worsted weight, that is what I needed for gauge. So that is what I'm doing. It really feels more like a worsted weight than DK. Anyway, so I'm making some good progress on that. And I started, so it is mid-November, and I decided now, of course, that there are people that I would like to do some Christmas presents for, knitting-wise. Maybe I should actually get on that and decide who and what I want to knit, and then start knitting. So my goal in my Facebook group last week was to sit down and make a list of who I want to knit for and what I want to make them. And so I made that list, and I basically have prioritized the list of who I really want to knit for the most, like Luke's teacher. I would really like to make something for her. And although I haven't started her project because she has a list of her favorite colors on the school website, and I just need to go look those up. I'm pretty sure I remember her saying pink and like turquoise, and there's a project a 2-color project that I'm planning to do for her. So I just need to double check those colors and then probably dye something and use that for her. So that is one of my goals for before the end of this week, to do that. Anyway, so I started the first project on my list, which is a hat for my niece. I won't say which niece. I don't think any of them watch the podcast, but I won't say which one. So it's a hat for one of my nieces. And I just started it last night. So I cast on and did the ribbing, and it does have some cables in it. So it's actually like more of a traveling cable, or I guess you can't, it's not really a cable because they're not crossing like you would normally see with a cable. But the technique to do it is cabling, but it's basically going to travel. So it forms kind of a diagonal. Anyway, so I started that, and to show you what it looks like, because you don't really get to see much of a pattern quite yet, this is the Shasta by Sloan Rosenthal. And I believe this is a fairly new pattern that recently came out. So, again, I'll try to get the glare best. So you can see the little cables form this like chevron type of pattern. And of course I touched the screen, so it's not going to keep the picture up. So here is an image of the back of the hat. So again, you can kind of see those chevrons there. Yeah, and I don't know yet whether or not I'm going to do the pom-pom at the top. I think I will maybe ask my sister if she thinks my niece would like the pom-pom or not before I do that. Anyway, so I'm enjoying the pattern. It's a nice pattern, pretty easy, well written, and yeah, I think it'll look really nice. And look, I'm all matchy in purple everything today. So anyway, this yarn, oh, I forgot to grab the tag. This yarn is from Toil and Trouble. Actually, here's the tag over here. Toil and Trouble, which I got when we took that trip to Massachusetts, which I actually talked about on the podcast. I don't remember which episode, but so we took a trip to Massachusetts, I went to Salem, and I went to a yarn shop. I believe the yarn shop is Circle of Stitches. Anyway, Toil and Trouble, the dyer behind Toil and Trouble is the one who owns the yarn shop. And so I was able to get this yarn while I was there. It is a worsted weight yarn, and this color is called Hyacinth. So the purple, that makes sense. So I'm excited to be able to use the yarn that I got. And I think hopefully it'll be something that my niece really likes. And so I have several other projects that are in my queue that are waiting to go. Most of them are hats. You know, they are small projects. For Luke's teacher, I'm planning to make a cowl. Actually, my Chanticleer cowl, which I'll be showing you guys, you know, whenever I start that. So it's a 2-color cowl, so that way I can use her 2 favorite colors. And mostly the rest are hats. So hopefully I can knock them out pretty quickly and get the projects done in time for Christmas. So we'll see. So what I'm dyeing right now is the first month for the yarn club. Basically, as people sign up for the yarn club, I've been dyeing the yarn so that way I can make sure that I am ready to go for that first month. And then as soon as tomorrow, once the yarn club has closed and I'm able to see the final number, I can actually start dyeing for the other months as well. So that way I can make sure I don't get behind, because I think when you sign up for a yarn club, that really, for me as a dyer, that is my most important priority. It is something that you guys have signed up for, especially those who've paid all up front in advance. And I want to make sure that you get the club yarn on time when it is scheduled. So my trick to doing that is just to make sure that I do it in plenty of time in advance, especially if I run into any problems. That way I want to make sure to have enough time to address the problems and not delay shipment. And in fact, in the Tristan and Isolde Yarn Club, I did run into a rather significant problem. And fortunately, I was dyeing in advance. I think it was a month and a half before that shipment was supposed to go out that I was working on it. So I had enough time, to order more yarn, because it was a base that I don't carry, or now I do, but it was one of the new bases. So I'd only bought enough for the club. So I had to buy more, so I could re-dye it. And then do all the dyeing. So fortunately, I had plenty of time to do that, and not have to worry about shipping late or something. So what happened? Basically, it was my Grail colorway, or Grail base, which is a new base that I've added. The club got to see it first, and then now it is a regular base, although I still need to, I'll be honest, it's a very expensive base. So I'm buying a little bit here and there, and dyeing it up. The reason it's so expensive is because it is a blend of merino and cashmere and silk. It is some good stuff. And it's actually the yarn that I used for my Wonder Woman wrap. So if you've been watching the podcast and you saw my Wonder Woman wrap, I don't know if you noticed that I never mentioned exactly what the yarn was. That was because I was working on the wrap before the yarn club got the yarn, so I didn't want to give away, what the yarn was. I wanted to make sure that the yarn club still got that surprise. So that was the yarn I used for the Wonder Woman wrap, and I love this yarn. It is so luxurious and wonderful. Anyway, so originally the yarn club was going to get this color right here. And if you were in the yarn club, you actually got something very different. You got a very, very, very light tan color. So more of a brown, which ultimately I felt worked better with the story. The name was Isolde of the White Hands, and so I do think that light tan that has just a slight pinkish undertone, I do think that fit the story better. So I'm actually happy overall that I had to make that change, because like I said, I do think it fit better. But this was the original intention for the yarn club. I actually had already had the postcard that I send out with this color on it made up, and I had to rush and order new postcards once I changed colors. The reason is because for some reason one of the dyes in this color just did not want to dissolve, and so it left places where there were clumps of dye, which when that happens, there's clumps of color that usually ends up on the yarn. So this is a skein that I have not done anything else with. So you can see these big clumps right here, and they're really dark. And I mean, I know I've shown clumps of color in the past, and some of you have said that you kind of like that and you don't mind it. But this one just really more seems like the yarn is dirty. There's another kind of bigger blotch right there. It really felt like the yarn was dirty. There was something wrong with the yarn rather than being a potential, adding depth or dimension to the yarn. So I did not want to send this out to the yarn club. But I didn't see the clumps until I had dyed quite a few skeins of this. Quite a few. And it wasn't until they were already dry and I was getting ready to reskein that I realized that quite a few of the skeins, the majority of them, had those clumps, and I realized it was something wrong with the dye, and decided to use a completely different color rather than go back and try to fix this one. There were a few skeins that ended up okay without those blotches, and I actually already have those listed on the website. So it'll be under Grail, the base, and that I think I put like a dusty rose or something like that as Grail in Dusty Rose. So I have a couple of skeins that did not have blotches that I'm selling as one-offs. There are a couple, so I guess more than one. But they are called Quest colorways. So anything that is not a regular colorway. something that's an experiment, something that is non-repeatable gets the name quest and then a number after it. So quest number whatever. I think this one is 63, 64, something around there. So I've done quite a few experimental colors. So because I had all those skeins with those blotches and I felt like I can't sell them with the blotches, but this is really nice yarn and there's nothing wrong with the yarn, it was just the color, I decided to do something called over dyeing, where you basically take the yarn and throw it back into the dye pot with another color. And the thing to always remember, so if you are a dyer or if you ever experiment with dyeing, whether it be the acid dyes like I use or if you use Kool-Aid or food coloring, dye is transparent. So it is not something that you can just, throw yarn in a dye bath and just have the new color become the color. The new color is going to interact with the color that is already there. So you always have to keep that in mind. So anyway, so I thought about, okay, so what are some colors? I'm going to have to go darker because in order to hide those blotches, I need to make sure that what I'm adding to it is a lot darker. So let's just experiment and see what I can come up with. And so I have a bunch of experiments, and that's what this stack of yarn back here is. And actually, this is, that's something else that I wanted to show you. Okay, so that's something else. Get to that in a minute. So this is a series of experiments. So I have this, and let's see how well the color is going to show. Okay, so I have that one. And I have two, and all of these skeins I just added to the online shop yesterday. So especially if you're watching this shortly after it comes out, these skeins are currently available. You can go to roundtableyarns.com if you see one that you really like. So there's this one, which I have 2 skeins of. Then, so all of these started out this color. Then I tried a slightly different color, and this one is kind of a really dark maroon. So I have 2 skeins of that one. Then I have this color, which I think, if I remember right, I threw a purple on top, kind of a darker purple. So this color I have 4 skeins of. And then I thought, ooh, what if I throw it blue over it? So that's what I did with this one. And this one I really love. I think this one is my favorite because, and I don't know how well you can see this on camera, but you can still, like I said, dye is transparent. So you're still going to be able to see a little bit of what's under it and it's going to interact. But this one definitely has just sections that are more the other color. It's more of a variety of here. So this one and the blues is my favorite of the lot, I think. And I have 4 skeins of this one as well. Perhaps get it soon, or else I just might have to add this to my own stash. Anyway, so that's, just some fun experimenting that I was able to do, taking the yarn that wasn't usable because of blotches, and to make it into something new. And this one just hasn't ended up in the dye pot yet. I do plan to throw it in the dye pot and fix the blotches, but since I still had it, I thought it was, I would save it, and instead of dyeing it, I would save it until I could talk about it on the podcast to show you guys what I meant by blotches, and then also the original color. So those are all Quest skeins. So I actually did not keep any notes or keep track of what colors I was using, so they're non-repeatable. So if you want them, make sure you go to the shop and get them. But there are also sometimes Quest colors that come out because of a problem, where the color that I'm intending to dye doesn't work out. So that's what I have. The first one I'm going to show you is the color that it's supposed to be, and then I'm going to show you just something happened during the dyeing process and it became something completely different. So this color here is my Marold colorway, and I tried to put some lights kind of above me. Let's see, got little lights. Maybe I can shine a light on this guy. I don't know if that helps at all. Anyway, so this is my Marold color, which kind of has a purplish tint to it. It is a brownish purple kind of color. but there's definitely purple to it. In a way, kind of, maybe eggplant isn't quite right, but anyway, so it's definitely in the purple realm of things. And this was a club color. Yarn Club got this color. It's now available for everybody, but this is a color that the Yarn Club got. And because it was a color the Yarn Club got, it was a color that I used a lot of the dyes that went into it, and so I had to buy more dye. And I think one of the dye colors, dyes themselves have dye lots. So one of the dye colors, I think was a different dye lot, and it came out very, very different. Pretty, I still like it, but it is not the Merled color. So that is what I have here, and I don't know if that light thing helped at all. Ta-da! Yeah, the light. I don't even know what purpose this light has. Anyway, so this is brown. I really do not see any element of purple in it. So if I kind of compare, this is what the color should have been, and this is what the color turned out to be. Even though these are different bases, this is the Cornwall base, and this is Tristan. Even though the bases are different, they really should look a lot more similar. So this is not Merled. This is not right. I ordered some more dye so I could get yet another dye lot, and that is what I used for this skein. So yay, the new dye that I ordered is the correct color. And then the old dye, apparently it's creating something like this. And I noticed that I used it on another colorway, another base, and it came out even different from this. So it's just weird dye. Anyway, so this is Tristan, which is the sport weight, 100% superwash merino, and I have 4 of these. So if anyone really likes this brown, which is a pretty brown, this is another Quest colorway that is not repeatable, and a little bit of a dyeing mistake that ended up with that color. So I just thought I'd share a little bit about the Quest colors and why you might be seeing them, especially because I think now I'm up to Quest number 68 was one of the ones that I added. So Quest 68, quite a few of these Quest colors have been happening. Yeah, that one's the Merled. Where did I put the Tristan? Oh, wherever I put it, there it fell. Yeah, that one's 64, and then the 4 grails are 65 through 68. So I like to have fun and experiment and be able to share them as Quest colors. So if you ever run across one of these Quest skeins, that's what it means. It's a non-repeatable or an experimental colorway. So bad news is if you want more of it, probably can't do it. But the good news is you get something a little bit unique that no one else really has. So again, all the ones that I showed you are currently available in the shop as of recording this episode. So if you want one, make sure you hop over there and get it. Just something small that I've added to my stash that I thought I would share. So my needles that I mostly use are from a company called Dyack Craft, Dyakcraft, and they are the darn pretty needles which Dyack Craft no longer makes because the wood supplier that they were using, the factory burned to the ground and they didn't rebuild. Anyway, so I love those needles, but you really can't get them anymore. Although occasionally there is still some wood in the shop, and so they are using up gradually what they have, and sometimes they will post like small runs of the needles on their website. Anyway, but they also have a kind of needle called the heavy metal needles, and in the smaller sizes, so sizes 0 through 3, they have an interchangeable set in these heavy metal needles, and that's what I use for my smaller size needles, and I really like them. So they recently came out with heavy metal needles in DPNs with double pointed needles. And I thought, you know what, I really have been wanting another set of sock needles, so I think I'll go ahead and give these a try. And these arrived on Monday, and I actually checked the mail on my way out to my knitting group, and so I got the package in the mail, and I just took it with me to my knitting group and opened it up there. And so, yeah, I got to experience the slight I don't want to say disappointment, but a slight realization that I didn't read the description well enough. I use 6-inch needles for my socks, and these are 5-inch needles. So if you can just see from from my finger, so these are a 5-inch length, which to me looks so short. It's amazing how much just 1 inch can make a difference. Looks so short, and so I'm not sure how I'm going to feel with using these on socks, but I'm going to give them a try. I haven't had a chance to start yet, so there is Diet Craft. I haven't given them a try yet, but I will try them out. But I'm a little concerned about how short they are. But anyway, if you need a small set of interchangeable needles, definitely recommend these Heavy Metals. I have the interchangeables, and then they also do another metal type of needle in the larger sizes, so sizes 3 through 9. I think they only go through 9 in the metals, in interchangeable sets. So if you want that, then you can, if you like metal, then they're definitely really good needles. The joins are really nice. They don't grab your yarn as they're sliding across, so I really like them. So that's something that I've recently added to my stash, my tools, that I wanted to share with you, and I'll let you know if the length is too short or if I'm actually successfully able to make some socks on those. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is the same day I got in the mail my little sticker for being a patron of Knitty. So if you're not familiar, Knitty is a free online magazine that has patterns and articles and other types of things. And Knitty has been around for quite a while. And unfortunately, because it is free, it is free for people to use. So if you are interested in making a pattern that is on Knitty, the pattern itself is free. If you want to read the article, it is free. But Knitty does pay the designers. So that is something, especially if you value knitwear design and crochet design. And you want to make sure your designers get paid. The designers on Knitty do get paid. It's not a huge amount, but they do get paid. And then Knitty also obviously has expenses with hosting the website and everything. So Knitty only really makes money from advertising, which they actually lowered their advertising rates. And so they make a little bit of money on advertising, but they're not really bringing in a lot of money, and they're struggling. And so they started a Patreon. So Patreon is a website where you can basically sponsor people and businesses. So they started a Patreon campaign, and you can choose to become a patron, a sponsor, and pay a monthly amount that goes toward Knitty. I think it's monthly. Maybe Knitty's one that does it whenever an episode or an issue is released. There are different ways of paying on Patreon. Anyway, I've been a Knitty patron since Knitty started their Patreon campaign, which I think was in 2015, because I also have a 2015 sticker. Anyway, so I'm on a much lower level. I think it's like $5, so it's either $5 per month or possibly even per issue. If it's per issue, I think I should raise that. Anyway, so it's a very, very low tier. It is not a lot of money. And I honestly, I don't use Knitty all that much, but I think that it is a very valuable thing to have in the knitting world, and I would hate to see it go under. I would hate to see it end, so I definitely am happy to support it. So very low level. There are higher levels if you feel like supporting on a higher level. But I just got an email today that in September, people become a patron and then they leave. That's, that is something that happens. Apparently in September, 120 of the patrons decided to leave. Just, I guess, a big chunk all at once. Maybe people are trying to save money for the holidays. I don't know. I don't know what reason, but they lost a big chunk of patrons, and that means they lost a big chunk of the money that they would expect to have gotten for the next few months. So they really would like, they asked us basically to spread the word. So that's what I'm doing, spreading the word about becoming a Knitty patron. So I will link to the Knitty Patreon page on the show notes. And if you are compelled to donate even just a couple of dollars so that Knitty can make sure to continue, then I hope you'll do so. And there are, like I said, lots of different levels. So my level, I get a little sticker, but there are other swag, other things that you can get at different levels if that's something that you're also interested in. So like I said, I will put that on the show notes. So if you want to help support Knitty, you can do that. So we have the fourth quarter knit along that is going on right now. And if you remember, if you've been watching the podcast, the theme, and I'm going to the forum, the theme for this quarter's knit along is any shawl that is inspired by or named after a literary character or work of literature. So there are lots and lots of things that can be done to fit the theme. I'm going to the FO thread so I can show you some of the things that have been finished. So definitely, if you haven't joined in, it's not too late. The quarter runs through the end of the year. So I know there's Christmas knitting for a lot of us in there. But possibly you could tie the shawl into one of your Christmas gifts and kind of participate in both. But anyway, that is something that that I invite you to participate in. And so I think I showed last time Dragon Fairies had finished his Golden Layer shawl, which is the shawl that I plan on knitting. I still haven't cast on. It's a worsted weight shawl, so I'm hoping I can still finish it by the end of the year. So this is the unblocked version of his Golden Layer. It's from Dragon Fairies. And then AC Sparky picked Septima's Asymmetrical Shawlette, which is based off of, if I can actually click over, come on, internet. The pattern is by Linda Browning, and she made, AC Sparky made this in the Roundtable Yarns Tristan, which was a Yarn Club colorway, but basically this is based upon, says the pattern is the first in a series designed around the Harry Potter series of books and movies. Each will be knitted with a special staff member of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in mind. So this is just a thing that arithmancy professor Septima Vector would appreciate. So that is the literary reference that this one goes into. So again, AC Sparky 89. That is her version, and that was a Yarn Club colorway, which is one of the very few variegated colorways that I've ever done. So that was a very nice project. And then PTM Smith finished a Green Gables shawl. So even though it's Green Gables, she did it in purple, which totally fine with. I love purple, obviously. So there is the Green Gables shawl, obviously from Anne of Green Gables, that PTM Smith did. So those are the FOs that we have so far. Thank you guys for participating and finishing. I know based upon the chat thread, there are several more of you who are working on this knit along. So I hope you will join in. If you haven't, or if you have already joined, I hope you'll continue and make sure you post an FO by the end of the year. So you got until December 31st. Because I finally picked out the prize while I was at West 7th Wool this past weekend. Let me grab it. It's in plastic, so try not to rattle it too much. I was looking around the shop, and I really, since this is a literary themed knit along, I really wanted to make sure that I hit that literary theme in the prize. And what better literary theme than Wonderland yarns? So from Alice in Wonderland. So I picked up a mini skein kit of the Cheshire Cat yarn, which is a fingering weight. There are 5 mini skeins. There are 128 yards per mini skein, so that gives you a total of 640 yards. of fingering weight superwash merino. So you can do quite a bit with that yardage. And I really liked this color. So it's really a gradient that starts dark and goes to light. There were other color options that had more of a variety of colors, but I really like the gradient. So Wonderland Yarns, this particular colorway is called Shillings and Pence, number 16. So this is the prize that will be going to a randomly selected post from the FO thread in the knit along and crochet along. Crochet is definitely welcome. In the Q4 literary themed knit along for the podcast. So I'm really excited and looking forward to finding out who that yarn is going to go to. So again, we've got 3 FOs so far, so it could be one of those 3 people, or if you finish an FO between now and the end of the year and you post, the yarn could go to you. So I hope that you'll join us in the thread, chat, share what you've been working on, and I will post a link in the show notes, or you can go to Ravelry. Make sure that you're in the T-shirts and shawls forum, the group, and there is a post. It's a pinned post at the top. So I hope that you will join us for that. And yeah, it's really exciting. And I will cast on my shawl. Need to get that gift knitting done, but it's a worsted weight shawl that I've picked, so hopefully I will still be able to have time to finish it. We'll see. But since I can't win the prize, then it's not quite as important, but I do still like to knit along and create something for each quarter. But anyway, enough about that. I hope you will join us. So I think that's all I have on my list to talk about. Yes, I know I skipped the shawls section. I need to go through my Ravelry projects and make a list of all my shawls and find the ones that I have not yet talked about and make a list of those so I know what I still have available to talk about. And I just didn't sit down and make that list before this podcast episode. I wanted to record the episode. So I will make sure before the next episode that I've made that list so I know there are some shawls that I've made that I've not talked about. So I will make that list and make sure that I pick up those shawls that I still have remaining to talk about. And then I don't have a what I'm reading and watching section because there's nothing really that I've been reading and watching that I feel I really strongly want to talk about. I'll just say that history thing that I was talking about, I'm definitely still kind of pursuing that and enjoying that a lot more. There's some more podcasts that actually just this morning I kind of stumbled across about history that I'm trying out. So if those turn out to be really good, I will make sure to share those in future episodes. So that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. If you've just joined me for the first time with this episode, I do hope that you will come back and watch some more or check out some of the earlier episodes. And for those of you who are returning viewers, thanks so much for coming back and watching me in this week's episode. And if you liked any of the yarn that I showed you in the What I'm Dyeing section, all of that is currently available in the shop, the online shop, roundtableyarns.com. So since they're all Quest colorways, once they're gone, they're gone. So if you really love one, make sure you go check and see if it's still available and grab it before someone else does. Anyway, so next week is Thanksgiving. I hope that, at least in the United States, so I'm spending time with family. I hope you guys get to spend time with family and friends and have a really wonderful, happy Thanksgiving. And I will see you guys the week after. Until then, happy knitting!